Tonight we are being visited by two guests, and we're taking turns sharing their work and who they are. The first is Meryl Saki, and she is a graduate of the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. She's an art educator and the founder of SheDo, which is a neon, I want to say this right, organization dedicated to fostering diversity and sustainability in the field of neon. That's amazing. And she teaches not only adults but K-12 schools in San Francisco. And James is here visiting from Brooklyn, New York. He graduated from Alfred University. He's also an artist and art educator. And he was visiting just trying to check out the classing. And Maggie is really fortunate to host their collaboration and working together here at Maggie. So without that anymore, I'll let Cheryl take over. I can help.
Thank you. There we go. Okay.
We're helping ourselves to be alive.
Clarity. We need clarity.
Thanks, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Okay. I thought that this was great that I did. I'm Meryl Hodge, and I make neon art, mixed media work. I'm going to show you my website and some of my work first, and then I'll talk about SheDo and what we do and what we have coming up. But I want to thank Sarah and Aaron and Maggie for this awesome opportunity, their generosity, and all of the people who kind of like came and sat next to me while I was working and visiting. I appreciate your energy and all the support. So the work that I make has sort of revolved around my journey and my relationship to motherhood over the last 3 years, both before I became a mother, before the pandemic in 2019, and then now I have a 15-month-old 3 years later after trying. And, you know, I experienced some miscarriage and a lot of anxieties around the state of our world, where it's headed, the responsibilities that we have as parents to raise children in this world, and all of the things that are going to be in our future and kind of what we're going through right now. It gives me a lot of anxiety. So this piece is very kind of intense. I guess I'll start there. This is currently in an exhibition with SheDo at the Tacoma Museum of Glass. It's a whole installation with a yellow carpet, a very domestic space, with the word repent on artificial flowers. And, you know, I think it just, it really speaks to, I try not to talk too much about this work because I really want people to like engage with it and feel stuff for themselves, and I'm happy to talk about it more with you individually later, but I can read from my website on the statement. Modern guilt is what it's called, recognizes the intersectional nature of societal, environmental, and socio-political problems as the impact of self-serving behavior cripples both economies and the environment. The global pandemic exacerbates humanity's impact. And, you know, due to its long history embedded in the capitalist system of consumerism, neon is an appropriate medium to address these behaviors with. So, you know, we have false flowers kind of made out of plastic. I collaborated with my friend Allie Felton, who's a textile artist in the Bay Area. Now she's in Los Angeles, on creating these furniture pieces made out of slides, found objects, and a lot of recyclable materials. And it kind of just is like this Americana vibe with the lounge chairs. And this like thank you bag in there. Everybody recognizes that it's a shopping bag. So this is the tower tarot card. So I had copper etchings of the tarot card, one reversed and one upright. I was getting that card a lot in 2020. I installed this piece in 2020, and the day of installation was actually the day that the sky was orange. When we all woke up and it was like, oh my god. And I had like finished the installation the day before or something like that, and it was literally the same color as the sky. It was really trippy. So moving on, I guess, well, actually, let's backtrack to 2019. You know, another sort of, I don't know, nod to motherhood and anxieties. I have these childlike flowers that I used to draw, you know, when I decided to eliminate them from my sketchbook, just a nod to my childhood and the fact that I lost a mom. I don't have a mom to guide me on this journey. And then, you know, the resin is a reference to tar and the passage of time it kind of talks a little bit about our process and that our transformers are potted in tar, and when they die, they start to leak out tar, and it's really kind of yucky. But I love the look. I think it looks so cool. And so one of my first installations was at the Midway Gallery in San Francisco, and I did actually use real tar on neon. But that's smelly, and like no gallerists really, except for the Midway, I guess, would love that in their space. So I decided to start using a quick cast resin, which you can kind of time the pour to cure mid drip. And so I would build these layers of that tar on the tubes, and I had to do all of it installed in my studio. So the whole piece had to be installed, and I had to sort of like paint with it the way that I wanted, and it really softened the process for me. Sometimes I struggle a little bit with neon in that like there's a lot of these expectations around it, and like it needs to be really perfect. So this was a little bit more of a painterly approach, and I think also references just childhood and domestic spaces. There was also a carpet on the floor of this space as well when I installed it. Let's see. And then way back, this is mirrors show. This is a 8-foot by 8-foot talisman from a very historic grimoire called the Key of Solomon, and it's like for magic, right? It's for rituals. And the title of this piece is called Invocation Through Fabrication. So in the making of this piece, I'm invoking the meaning of this talisman, which is supposed to mean success in business or trade. So what does that ritual look like in my studio? I swept my table off every time I came in, and lit whatever, like oils or whatever, something to get me in a good vibe. I was trying to be mindful of myself and my own body and how my mood was, and not put in any outside stuff into the studio, and just be present. And if I didn't feel like I was present, I would walk away from the process. So yeah, that's it talks about spirituality and the magic of making craft, and the fact that it's really a ritualistic process. It's a spiritual process, and it brings us closer to like really knowing our place in the world and in the universe and our relation to one another. And then my candle holders. So this is kind of what brings us here. I'm making these in Oro now because I recognize that soft glass is not want to do what I want it to do. I want to give something that craves consistency. Like its last dying wish is consistency, and I want to give it consistency. I want to push it. I want to suck it in. I want to talk about expansion and contraction. These works were made during the time of me trying to conceive, getting over those anxieties and being like, okay, I'm going to do it. And, I miscarry and I have some loss and grief. And I'm working through the grief with this, through, flow. Again, that like spiritualism and connection to yourself when you're in the studio and in the filmmaking stuff. So these works are sort of like a prayer and process. And I'm also meditating on these themes of just what it means to like house something inside of a vessel. And yeah, so now I'm here at Baggy trying to make them in Boro, and James has been a really amazing teacher for me. I will move on to Shivans really quickly. I think I have some more time, right?
Oh yeah, you got plenty of time.
Yep, plenty of time. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that, or should we save that to the end? We all go through this and we'll save it? Okay. So a little bit about Shivans. First, I just kind of want to say we were recently invited, or I went down to Los Angeles for Shivans to talk about Shivans. My partner Kelsey is here as well. My partner in crime. Shivans is dedicated to building a more equitable future for women and gender expansive people, underrepresented artists in the industry and in the art form, and also just kind of like in museums in general. This was a presentation that I made in Los Angeles for the Getty Conservation Institute, and they're really, it's so exciting. They're really interested in conserving neon art. Like, how do we conserve this? What does it mean to conserve it? Where do we get the stuff to conserve it? What do we do if we can't find the stuff? And they're making a concerted effort to reach out to craftspeople and people in the community, both, people who are really steeped in industry and the science and the chemistry of all of it, and people who are making art And one of my main purposes for being down there, and I think why they wanted me down there, was to speak to the new generation of artists that are coming into neon, to impress upon institutions the need for support of these artists, because those artists are going to be artists that they're having their own spaces, and they're going to be considering our work, or maybe be relying on us to help them in the future. So it's important to support the industry that they're trying to preserve. So, break the pattern, feature neon art. So it's this is just what I'll talk about. And we heard a little bit about our organization through public education, curatorial projects, and artist programs. We foster diversity and sustainability, and we center handmade neon work from young, diverse artists that push the boundaries of the material and process past traditional signage-based frameworks. Which sort of means outside of the typical association of neon with signage commercialism, which isn't bad, but a lot of the artists that are in fine art spaces utilize the help of commercial sign vendors to make their work. There are few vendors that are in these spaces that are making the work themselves, and it's important that they are, because those artists are going to be the people who are really pushing the boundaries of this medium, questioning what it can do, making it do new things outside of that two-dimensional space, or literal space, I guess. And some of our programs: residencies, exhibitions, and artist resources. We've done a few residencies. Our most recent one was in Los Angeles with Central. They are a developer in Los Angeles, and they housed an artist and gave them commercial studio space, like ground level, downtown Los Angeles, set up a neon studio. We helped with portable fires. Partner Kelsey drove all the way down with some portable fires, talked to fire marshals and all sorts of things, and we got her set up down there to live work in Los Angeles and create work, which is now on display at the Museum of Neon Art in their main gallery. Another residency we did was here in San Francisco out of my personal studio with Judy Abuzena. She's a Palestinian Canadian artist who created work that we exhibited at San Francisco the ICA, right? Institute for Contemporary Art. And also she's on display with me and some other artists at Tacoma Museum of Glass at our Redefining Neon Legacy show. So into exhibitions. Our first exhibition was at Mona in 2007, and it really kind of started with like a survey style exhibition of all the artists that we could think of that we knew of, women that were bending. And then we did a pop-up in San Francisco, Milwaukee Gallery, Bar West Gallery, Loveland Museum. Now we're getting into the museum spaces. MOG in 2023, finally coming in hot after a pandemic, and we didn't show for a while. And coming up, we have the Jewish Contemporary Museum in San Francisco in December, which is going to open the first night of Hanukkah, and show about light, the spirituality of light, craft, and some similar themes to what I discussed before. And then in 2024, in the summer, we're going to be at the Museum of Craft and Design, and hopefully we are looking for partners and funding to help us do a youth residency with underserved youth in the Bay Area, San Francisco mostly, to learn neon and be mentored by a lot of artists who are in fields that they're interested in and in the glass world. And then we'll show their work. So Soulcraft is kind of like our ethos, but the journey is the art, the beauty is in imperfection, right? We're breaking with tradition. Perfection is not necessarily the goal. That art is shaped and are shaped by their matter. It's a bodily and spiritual practice. We also are really interested in reintroducing trades, like vocational trades, into schools, into programs in schools, because it informs the work of the mind the work of the hands inform the work of the mind. It's crucial for critical thinking. It's some of the best cognitively developmental things that you can offer a young person. And sometimes, not every young person coming out of school can or wants to go to college necessarily. Maybe, there are other avenues for certain families and certain people. Novel neon. Okay, so if we're getting into kind of like the community and the people that I introduce and who I'm really looking at and inspired by, or we are inspired by at G-Vans, distinctive approaches to material and process that break from tradition. So weird stuff. It's really weird. Like just breaking the rules, not doing things that have been done before, and for a purpose, right? Like pulling tubes. James likes to pull tubes, and I'll tell you all about it. I'm sure. There's a purpose behind that. It's to serve the community, right? To give access to colors and things that are not available anymore because our industry is in a certain state, right? We've been left with the industry in a certain state, and we're passing, picking up the torch and carrying it forward and trying to innovate and find ways to just keep it going, And the more hands we put it in, the better. So exactly, conserving future of neon requires an attention to today's pioneers of material experimentation. So this is a video, but I don't know if it's gonna play. Oops. But it's a super cool video. Maybe we can find it somewhere. But it's a colleague of ours, Jacob Wilcox, pulling tubes in hot shop. Some of you guys have probably seen that before, but all of it starts in the hot shop. The neon tubes that we use are soft glass, and they're pulled in the hot shop. And this is super important, and James articulates it so well why it's so important that young people are learning how to pull tubes for themselves and for their brands and their communities, and how it's done and why it's innovative. But I wanted to include that because it's also a really huge part of the conservation effort for Getty. Wish I could show a video. So this is Zoelle. She's actually Jacob Fishman's daughter. Jacob Fishman is the vendor of Bruce Nauman Works. He is the person who conserves all of Bruce Nauman's works at the estate. He has so many cool behind the scenes photos of all of the work, instructions on how to make them. And so Zoelle is his daughter, and she learned at Penland, I believe, and all of this lasts from Penland 20 years ago that she got from her dad that can't be replaced. How do you need to know people to know how to recreate that. You got to get creative. So she just welds together some really beautiful glasses that get done. And so what I'm trying to do is impress upon people at Getty that not all the stuff that comes across their project bench is going to be the science stuff. We're this is a standoff. This is a twist. This is how you install it, right? They're gonna have things in front of them sooner than they think that looks like this, or that crazy stuff that he's gonna show you later. Like this. Sorry to beat you to it. I know you have a slideshow of all of it, but I did include James Akers, of course, in my Getty presentation because look at that stuff, and it's James has some really interesting opinions and ideas about how he wants his work to be experienced in the future, how he wants it to be conserved or not conserved or whatever. So those are all things. It's artist intent is also really important in all of the conservation efforts. Here's another squiggle. Galen Turner is kind of in the same space, all hand-pulled tubes. And this is crazy weird. You just don't see that, Very difficult too. Very long tube. All single unit. Oh no, this is 2 units. He calls these his scooter sticks. Again, unique hand-pulled tubes with a lot of really awesome work there. These balls. This fine work, which I think is pretty different. This is Danny Case. This is what we're seeing actually here is a bunch of macaronis of random tubes inside a bigger tube. So I can't explain it, but that's the best I can do to explain it. And she's figured out a way. She's innovating and figuring out a way to process these units with other pieces inside of it. It's not that it hasn't been done before, but it really hasn't been done in this way. We have crackle tubes, but I've never seen this before. Keith Boyd does some interesting decorative work on the outside of soft glass tubes like this, and they're all illuminated from the inside. Sarah Blood, who's also in our Tacoma show at the Museum of Glass. She's somebody who inspired a lot of young women, especially. This piece made the rounds on Tumblr so much when I was coming out of college, and I was oh my god, that's amazing. It's it really motivated me to be I want to get good at this. I want to do this. This is concrete with neon, and this is not something that can be repaired either. So it's make it on site. It's super expensive to ship, so it takes a certain amount of care This is Angelina. Please forgive me, I can't pronounce her last name. She creates really interesting work. Here's a crystallized piece. She's also experimenting with. I think I have a video of hers at the end. She's experimenting with like sound waves and frequencies and animating neon tubes to react to people in the space that are experiencing her work. This is James. This piece I don't have a video of, but maybe we should really find one. It literally, like, you think that's crazy. It animates and it goes crazy, you know. It's like how do you recreate? How does anybody with the artist recreate this? Like, you know, there's so many questions to ask here. And that was the video, but for some reason it's not playing. Carissa Grace, also in our exhibition at Museum of Glass in Tacoma. This is called Comforter, and it is a fence, a chain link fence made of neon. Each row is a zigzag, and it corkscrews into the following. So kind of like crazy installation piece. I mean, it takes many comforters and like curators or like just around to just do the whole thing and make sure it's done right. And yeah, she does include like an 11-page instruction, so she's pretty on top of it. But you know, I mean, like that's also an important thing when we get invited to these types of talks and we bring it back to our artists. That provides resources for our artists. Like here's what conservators and exhibitors are thinking about when they're thinking about exhibiting this. Making it easy for them, making it approachable for them means that it gets invited into more spaces. So if Carissa can do her due diligence, pack this up really nicely, and like, you know, be super professional and like give directions, it makes it more approachable and doable for other people. Because otherwise, you know, and you can't really see it in this photo, but there's 16 transformers on this piece. So we had Danny Case do a really special installation. You know, the experience of installing this work is like core memories for me for sure. And we've installed it twice. Another one of mine, I do a lot of seat clamps and blocks and things that try and crush the neon because I have such a love-hate relationship with it. Here's another, that center block is balancing on it's balancing kind of like this detail. Mundy Hepburn is like the godfather of plasma work. I'm still just beginning to wrap my head around this, so I will not be able to do a great job of explaining exactly what happens in his work. This is also a video on the left, but if you have a chance to look up his stuff online, I definitely encourage you to. It's pretty magical, and he makes all of them tools. This is all soft glass tubing, right? Yeah. And he can phosphorus things. He has his own furnace. He makes everything. Like he literally is a sorcerer. Camilla Mraz. She's from Poland. This is considered plasma work. Some of it's single electrode, some of it's double electrode, but most of it's single electrode. And it's just some beautiful, beautiful work. Another video that's not working, but this little blown out piece in the center, this is Angelina's work. And there's like a synthesizer hooked up to a transformer somewhere or something, and like when she turns the knob, it makes the neon go crazy, and then, you know, when she calms it down, it calms down as well. And it's, you know, it's new, innovative stuff with the electronics. It's not just with the glass work. It's also with how pieces are experienced and how it can be, you know, relayed to somebody else. And that's actually the end of it. I guess I should have. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? We're going to get to the end now.
No, that's a new question.
Okay. Yes, Kelsey. Yes. So we, like I said before, we have an exhibition at the Museum of the Jewish Contemporary Museum in San Francisco, December 7th. And so Camilla will be showing there with us. Let's see, Angelina will be showing with us. We have an artist named Rochelle, who's going to be doing a film, a beautiful film about neon and the people who are in the world, and a bunch of other artists, myself. We're showing Molly McKinley for the first time, who's from upstate New York, and she's worked with blown glass and salt bricks that really speak about alchemy. She melts glass onto salt blocks that she carves. sometimes she includes neon. Let's see, who else? What's that? Victoria Amadizade, who combines glass blown forms with neon, and Casey Lee's an educator, an amazing educator out of Chicago, who printed the Neon Primer, which is a really amazing, very artistic, hand printed book about neon. She calls it a handbook on light construction. And the first edition that she did was hand printed with mostly UV inks for a lot of the illustrations that she illustrated herself. And you could use a black light, a UV light, in the same way that we use it in the neon tray to illuminate our phosphors. You can use it in the book and it'll glow. There's some patterns in there for people to practice and a lot of tutorials. And basically it just talks about, a cultural history, essentially, of neon, not just a scientific one, all the way into our own hands. And then I'm sure I'm forgetting some artists, but hope to see you there. Any other questions? Hi, Wendy.
You mentioned carpet a couple of times in your installation.
Yes.
I was wondering what the relationship is.
Not really so much a relationship between the carpet and the neon. I think I'm always, maybe I'm always looking for ways to soften things. Sometimes the glass just feels, like you're probably even sticking sometimes. Like it's not always flow, And also I think it refers to the domestic space. Yeah. Oh yeah, so super good question. Yes, I didn't get too much into the technical because I know James will follow up with a lot of time. But designing a neon piece can be hand-drawn design. Sometimes I do it in a sketchbook. I'll blow it up, print it out in a plotter. We make a pattern first. So, for example, Kevin's piece, forgive me for talking about your work, but the diagram back there was made from a pattern, a design, and it was all laid out. It's basically a blueprint, and you have it to scale on your vending table. And you bend the tubes along the pattern, and then you process them with gas. So we'll go into that a little bit more in detail. If you're going to join us for a tour through the back. Yeah, yes. We're going to open up the back. Yeah, we're all gonna look at the neon and everything like that and talk a little bit more about it. But for me, it ends up being usually my sketchbook, or I'll do something on the computer, a layout, like some sort of a design, and then it has to be scaled to the size that I want, and then I end up making a pattern from it. And that's in a two-dimensional space. But when you're thinking about three-dimensional pieces, a lot of it is just about like something you got in your head, and then when you see it. I've been saying all week. What?
It's true.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, I'm gonna pass it off to James. Thank you so much.
Cool. Oh my gosh. Thank you all so much. I wanted to reiterate Carol's thank you to Aaron and the entire crew here at Baggy. It's really been a dream come true. I've been trying to plan this trip to California for a few years now. And this year there was finally like a window where it could actually happen. And it's a dream come true to finally actually be able to come out here. I've admired Meryl's work online for years, and getting to meet her was like amazing, and work with her. And yeah, it's been so thrilling. So I made this kind of slideshow out of some other slideshows I made, and I included some other stuff, and kind of just tells you where I come from and where I am now, and a little bit where I'm going. So yeah, so that blue dot over there is where we are, and that little castle thing is where I'm from, in Maryland. I come from farm country, not from the city originally. But now I live in Brooklyn. There's my cat on the left, and that's when Canada was on fire a few weeks ago. And I was like, wow, this guy, it smells like a campfire out here. And Allie, my girlfriend, she's from Colorado, and she was like, yeah, it's not good to breathe out, it's probably good size. So, I grew up skateboarding, and Thrasher magazine was like, I was like, when I go to San Francisco, I'm like, wow, like these streets, like the suburbs are crazy, and like the gnarliest, like more crazy, more like insane, like really into that. Like a little bit of danger, but like he had a friend watching those cars, so it's not there. So there's me skateboarding with some friends at Woodward Camp in PA. So I kind of grew up like playing video games and guitar. My brother and I were like into hacking Xboxes and stuff like that. I was the kid that like took stuff apart. We were going online and hack lobbies, and like we loved that kind of stuff. And so like these was like some of the mods you get into. And so, but then I went to Alfred University. So this is like a little clip of one thing I made while at Alfred. I was a super nerd. And I made this mobile neon manifold, kind of obsessed with like having the freedom to make whatever I wanted. And so, and like I kind of got into the hot shop, and then my buddy Denzel was saying like, we should try neon. So I got the neon, and I like read all the books I possibly could because I got super fascinated with it. So here we have this piece that's over about 1500 degrees, and it's totally pure and clean. And I built this manifold so we can just suck it right out. And then the microwave, it's kind of funny because it's like this like wireless, like it ionizes gas. It's like a wireless bombarder, but it's also like heating it up again. It's almost like flashing it in a microwave. It's kind of insane. So like it's sort of like so it's like huzzah! so it's like, and it's like it's totally like you're like racing against the clock the entire time. If the piece gets below like 500 degrees, it's gonna break. like, so yeah, and then we're like, what should we do? Like, what do we do now? Should we anneal it? Like, it's like, yeah, like run it over there. So that was like a quick thing. Like, so I was like a super nerd all through this entire time, and then I ended up at Chrysler Museum of Art Glass Studio, where it was like a perfect place to be. I mean, there was like the community was so rich, and there was these third Thursday performances every month that we'd have like these like kind of parties, and like no matter how like busy and like a grind, like they didn't pay you at anything. So it was like we were always like I was working at Chipotle, a sign shop, and just barely getting by. But that one night a week or one night a month, we were all like came together as a community and could forget about all of our problems and just work together and perform. And the hot glass is like it's mesmerizing to watch. So this is a performance that Kim and I did. Where we ended the thing with this fiery finale. We went to this giant floor with a bunch of fire and fireworks. It's really lovely and radical. And so this is stuff I made in Norfolk. I was still using that kind of manifold to make these kind of blown glass plasma pieces, and also still really obsessed with microwaves. And I also had a job right when I graduated in a commercial neon shop. It was just a way to like keep access to the material. I was thrilled to just like I had a boss who was teaching me the commercial standards, which were way more stringent and tight than anything I did in art school. And I had access to like those transformers at the bottom. I was pulled out of old channel letters, and he wanted me to learn more than neon, like also the installation side of it. So he would like set me up in a bucket truck, and I'd be like ripping out tube supports and gluing in LEDs, and like every single transformer, I'm like, these are mine now. They're expensive, so this is a sculpture that I made there. I was really into like we could not make work fast enough. There were so many shows happening locally, and so this is like a sculpture. I made this series of exhibitable objects, and this is a sculpture that's designed to shake itself off of any pedestal. It kind of plays with the fragility of the neon because like the neon's in this bungee rope, and as it falls, like the neon just goes boing. And there's these like motors. It's pretty, I like. I'm really into the like once again that like kind of crazy skateboarder thing. It's like you can't cage this, like you can't get out of it. But at the same time, like, if you get out of it, then the thing's just gonna break. So the cage is kind of there for a reason. Once again, like Brian, my old boss in Virginia, that first boss, he like wanted me to make like channel letters, so I learned how to make channel letters, and then immediately flipped it and was like, I'm gonna make art. Like, every time he showed me something, I was like, I want to make art with this. I got into just making art, doing glass blowing. So this was like a series of emoticons. This like Willem Producer was kind of saying, he's like, we're gonna go back to pictorial writing and not do text anymore. So this is kind of like the ridiculousness of that statement. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna describe how I feel on emoji. Like, this was synthesizers, this like sugar rush. And so yeah, I was into making these little flight sensitive synthesizers, which plays into my work kind of later on. Oh, and then so I with my partner Ali Feeney, She went to grad school at UTA Arlington, and so I went along with her and kind of I kept on doing neon down there, and also got a job doing at this art handling company. There's Allie on the left in grad school, and Texas was pretty magical. This place kind of reminds me of Texas in the sense that you can kind of just get on the highway and fly, and you gotta pretty much get on the highway and go anywhere. And on the right, we started this series called Neon in the Wild. So that's at Palo Duro the first time with these little battery packs. Um, and Allie took it to White Sands, which I'm so bummed I didn't go there. But I still want to go to White Sands. But and that's at this beach. It was kind of a way to like travel around a lot and also bring me out with us out like way out away from any electrical outlet. It's like at the sunset, it kind of has this like magical glow. You're in this golden hour. And so yeah, like I mentioned, I kind of like I didn't really quite have access to the neon shop at that time, but I was really super hooked. And so I had a buddy in Austin who lent me a bunch of torches and then some trips to the hardware store later, and I had a whole setup. And I loved teaching as well, and I was reaching out to all these institutions, and they were saying, no, we don't really have a spot for you, we don't have space for that. So I found this like makerspace that wasn't really a makerspace. It's kind of like it was like a makerspace with no stuff. And so I like added in these torches. I started just really super DIY, like running these classes and like kind of organizing everything myself. Um, and and yeah, I really loved teaching, and people just didn't have access or never seen it before and never even knew that it was all handmade. I didn't know it before myself convinced me to try. So yeah, it was really nice to and like the kind of students you get like I taught like nuclear physicists, like train engineers, news reporters, like any like there's not like any one particular type of people. And as I mentioned, I was doing the art handling thing, which was amazing because I learned how to that's a boundary type piece I got to like touch and like install in someone's house. And I also learned how to pack like anything. And saw a really wide scope of the art field, whether it's museums, galleries, corporate buildings, private houses. That's a Paul side piece, which is like one of my plasma idols, like very early. Probably one of the first people doing plasma, and I was one of the few collectors in Dallas that had class. And usually we're not supposed to, as the art handler, like talk to the people, but like I couldn't help but talk, and they were like, "You really know your class?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I kind of do some things." And then I was still like making commercial neon, which like that kind of just kept me had access to material and helped me pay for to make it. And like when it was like my day job, like when I get done, and I wasn't gonna stick around and sweep the warehouse. Like if I got done at 2 o'clock, like I'm booking it to Dallas to my studio to like make things. Whether that was a commission thing or just my own artwork. And I had a studio in Dallas, so I kind of went crazy with the artwork. And we making these like bursts, and I was I was visiting New York a lot. Like when Allie went to grad school there, like we both kind of knew we didn't want to live in Texas forever, but we were both kind of drawn to New York. And so I really loved this like wild style with these spurs, and also we got to do art handling at this cowgirl museum, and we handle all these spurs. So I'm like really into the wearable thing. So here's a video of me going down the train at the MTA, and like I had a class of wearable neon, and I broke one of them. I think in this video. See, we all have like wearable neon, and we took it all to Times Square. And there's me breaking a spur. See, they're not gonna last forever. So, kind of like once again, I'm like that kid that takes everything apart. And even though I had a studio, I still end up like kind of making the living room into the studio as well. This is like an electric bonfire, and so I'm making these like light sensitive synthesizers and then circuit bending toys into each other, and then making them kind of respond to the light, but then they'd also control the neon. So we make this kind of feedback loop where the toys would be controlling the neon and the neon would be controlling the toys, but yet they'd all be kind of interconnected and they'd be changing the environment at the same time. Um, so that's kind of these wild one sculptures, and they use these CMOS chips, so that these real weird oscillator chips that are just super forgiving and there's like not really any moving parts, but yet they still kind of electrically degrade because like I'm pressing the toys buttons really fast. They're not necessarily designed to do that. So I actually that piece looks kind of familiar. I actually have I believe this. There we go. So This piece actually, it's a Corning museum, and then like went to Japan and a bunch of places. And they've actually had to like occasionally like turn it off sometimes or a lot of times because it's like it also makes a lot of noise. It makes quite a racket. And like I just told him, I was like, don't make your galleries go insane. And like Allie is so lovely, and she like really puts up with a lot of like annoyance of these kind of things when I make them. But at a certain point, she's just like, enough, James. Like, stop. So I'm aware that like they can be a bit abrasive, um, but and so when I kind of love being a part of these craft communities, and the crafters get together a lot of times after like blowing glass all day, and especially if you don't have to drive or go anywhere, you kind of celebrate a bit. So start making these celebration chandeliers, and also I was doing the art handling thing, so I was seeing like a lot of people who like you guys live differently, and when you have like $1 billion behind your name. So they like this is kind of meant to be this like Jeff Koons mirror esque thing with this like beer and fireworks and neon all located in the same piece. At this time, I also had a residency at Knox in South Jersey because I wanted to blow glass and I just couldn't find anywhere to blow glass in Dallas. I didn't have any access, and that was a pretty transitionary time for me because I was able to focus on my work exclusively for like 2 months. So, and then at that time, I also ended up getting a job in New York. They found Chirpy there because there was like the whole institution was going through a transitionary time. There was just cats running around everywhere. Chirpy like kind of picked me. I also built this portable neon manifold there because they had parts and they just had like a neon shop like kind of sitting in pieces. And at South Jersey, there's a lot of scientific glass blowers around. So I was able to meet these people who work in the biochemical and pharmaceutical industry, these like super skilled makers who were able to help me out. And then I put the whole thing on wheels because that place is full of kilns and furnace. So it's there if anyone really wants to go and have fun with glass for 2 months and get a little stipend. And yeah, it's a fun place. So in Texas, I was working with this lady, Alicia, who teaches at UNT and making things for her. And then she approached me with this thing, this place called Color Factory. They really loved Alicia's work, but they wanted something with like a lot of pizzazz, you'd say, and like action. And so she reached out and said like, "Hey, I want to make this thing with you, but I want to collaborate with you instead of just like you fabricating for me." And so we made this piece called "You Are Magic," and it went to Color Factory in Houston. It's one of the largest things I've ever made. It has like a lot of channels of animation, and it's designed to be this experience. You have to hold hands you like one person touches the one sensor and then another person touches the other sensor and you hold hands and the thing builds up and builds up and builds up over the course of like 30 seconds but if you let go if you get like your phone asks you a selfie like it all dies down it start over and it's also different every time like it was a lot of fun and a ton of work to put together but it was also really cool because Color Factory paid us a bunch of money and I was about to move to New York City and the job that I had lined up fell through so it ended up working out okay, and I was like really concerned that I was like about to be a freelancer in New York, but it ended up working out really well. At that time too, like my landlord at that like makerspace in Dallas was in the energy industry, which meant that he went out to pump oil. He was pumping that oil, and and I kind of like with the crackers, the celebration chandeliers. Those people really love the party. Like he would be out working for a few months, and then he'd come back for like 2 weeks and he would just go crazy and party like all the time. And I was reading books about oil company executives who also love to party. And so this piece has a lot of fans and streamers, and it's all oil materials like plastic, thermoplastic urethane, and I have some custom circuitry and a bunch of neon money signs that are scintillating everywhere. And there's like I printed like oil tankers out of the urethane that doubled as outlets, and that was showed at Urban Glass. So while at Wheaton and while going to New York, I became really obsessed with neon rainbows, and you have to get this like to get like a neon red, like a true red. You have to get this Italian ruby red glass. It's really expensive. It's really hard to get, but in New York they import it all to Brooklyn. So and the stuff breaks in shipping you get half off, which is really cool. And you can buy like one tube, which as an artist was pretty amazing. So I started playing around with blown glass and the way, and I became obsessed with the way that the blown glass can catch the light. Um, and then I got a job. Like so, I mentioned I was terrified freelancing and going to New York. Um, and I came there with a bunch of like savings. Hope this works out. And it was totally fine because from day one I was like busier than I've ever been, and I could actually just like make me a full time job at that point, which I had never done. I'd always had like a side job or like art handled or something. When I got to New York, they were like, I could just make the neon and then hand it to somebody and be done. This is incredible. And so on the left, like we were doing a lot of jobs for big companies. On the right, that's like Cookie Monster's cookie for like the Not Too Late Show with Elmo. So there's like the MO two and stuff. This on the left is like some like TV show and yeah, a lot of companies and TV and like it was really crazy to make these things and then not really know where they're going and then end up seeing them like in real life and as part of ad campaigns and kind of see how the neon is being used to complement ad campaigns that you see on your screen. But this is like a glowing thing that will equally grab your eye and it's like your screen in real life. So that was like very interesting for me to see. And like coming back from the pandemic, it's like you have these ad campaigns. It's like the aspirational identity. It means skateboard. That's like, it all played in. And kind of the ad campaigns in Manhattan are so fast that most of the things we make end up getting destroyed in about 3 months. So we put all this effort into it, and then it all just gets smashed. Which is like we try to save it, but it's just like there's just no space. We just don't have room, and we kind of try to hold on to the best things for artists and whatnot. But at the end of the day, the space is so expensive, and um, it's nice that you can smash them in because otherwise it would just build up and build up and build up. So once again, like obsessed with rainbows, obsessed with color charts, and having a very, very wide access to a lot of different colors. I started making this alphabet soup. I still want to come back to this. I really want to make a version that's connected up to like Twitter and has 26 transformers. Each transformer costs about $100. So trying to find some grants or just collect a lot of transformers really. I was 3D printing these tube supports. Let's make up stacks of letters and assemble neon in different ways, aside from just being on the wall. And it could go on the wall. And I was interested in like it being totally random. So I taught a class in Ohio and then taught the students how to mount it. And I kind of just let them mount it in any which way they wanted. Because I didn't want it to have any sort of rhyme or reason or not spell out anything. Um, and also making large piles of them. And this is during pandemic. I fled to Maryland. I was like, there's just no point in paying rent in New York, and there's no work or anything. And I hadn't seen my parents or anything in a long time, so it was really great. But coming back from the pandemic, Allie was, everyone's past was disrupted. But I listened to that WFMU radio station quite a bit when I've been young. I'm pretty much always listening to something. And Allie found a lot of work blowing glass. She started working for Deb Teresco at a time when Blown Away had just premiered. So like there was a lot of work, and she became one of Deb's like main people for doing things. And yeah, the work like started coming back. And so I also started doing a lot more commercial work at this time. So this is for raising gains. And so these kind of wholesale jobs are starting to become a little bit rare in neon, but it allowed me to get like really steady work and to hire people because we started our own business during the pandemic. We found ourselves living off the government and nobody was hiring and no work and we all needed work. So I told my boss that hey, I'm going to start my own company and remote work in any way that I can. And he was so supportive of it. And so we kind of like Alicia made me realize it's like there's so much more to art than just making it. Like there's a whole business side that's actually really important. And so yeah, and they've allowed me to learn how to bend like a beer sign, which is actually kind of tricky. It's really tricky. And also it's showing me that like time is money. And if you can make a lot of things really fast, like artistically, this is very interesting. And there's something there that I haven't quite figured out yet, but there's some videos. There's is dimensional and really strange. And it's getting me into using jigs. So I had never ever seen anyone use a jig in Neon before, but heard stories of it. And this is me using a jig in Neon. So it's kind of just like it allows me to make this thing from 2 beats from 4 beats into two, which just doubles my speed. And allows me because it's expensive to live in New York, and it allows me to kind of compete with areas where it's not as expensive to live. Um, and like dumping two mercury tanks at once. And we also do stuff for like small businesses around Manhattan and Brooklyn. We try to kind of serve the smaller market of artists. While Nash, the big employer I work for, is only interested if the job pays like more than $40,000. So like, I come in with something that I think is big, and they just kind of laugh at me. I feel like super fortunate to be a fabricator. It's my favorite part. And when artists like do all this work to like get grants and things, I feel really lucky to be able to make it for them. Yeah, I love that part of it. Yeah, I feel like it's like I feel like I get the best out of the deal almost, and I just feel fortunate to be able to make these things for people. I love doing it so much. And like repairs, like I love that. These are actually like painted glass from China, but I can fix it with the real glass that it's supposed to emulate. And it's actually like easier for me to do that than to paint it myself because the paint is. I still don't know how exactly they get that to work, but one day I'll figure it out. Just kind of some crazy projects we worked on, and like sometimes as I spend pretty much every day when I'm in New York, I end up surprising myself with what I can even fabricate. I'm like, wow, I can really do that. Um, and yeah, these are like this job really kicked my butt. It's for this big Japanese artist, and it kind of changed the way I mark the glass. So anyways, I mentioned I listened to a lot of radio. And I got into this show, 7 Second Delay. It's like a stunt radio show. It's non-commercial. It's a call-in show, so you have to call in. And this guy Andy Breckman wrote for this show Monk, and also Night Race. And uh, and then Ken is the station manager. So they had a show where um, and this guy Kenneth Goldsmith had a show where he would try to do he basically did performance art on the radio. He would like try to drive away the listeners by playing just like noise and really annoying stuff, and then like drive away all the listeners so the next radio show has like had basically no one listening in a large major metropolitan area. So and then like these like experimental music groups like Negative Land, they had a radio show in San Francisco actually for a number of years where it was all collage cut up and based on copyright. Like Tom Sachs, who makes like forgeries that are actually worth more than the originals in New York. And there's this weird thing about art and intellectual property, where it's like people are like you're making like live, laugh, love, which is like this phrase. Gosh, another one. It's like, but there's like legit thieves out there. There's companies that are like stealing artists' work, but there's also artists who are accusing other artists of stealing their work. But it's like, yeah, it's actually yours. And so with all these thoughts in my head, again, just good vibes only. Like, and everyone's like, "Oh, I had this great idea." It's like, yes, you really did. So with all these thoughts in mind, I created this free intellectual property where you can call a Brooklyn number to it's a cultural hotbed, and you can get an idea that's yours. And those ideas get recorded into a sketchbook so that they're not duplicated. So you're not giving a duplicate idea away. At first the calls were probably I catered the ideas to them, and now the calls are about 30 seconds, and I hang up no matter what they say because I'm really busy and it is free. I'm kind of getting more than what you pay for. Um, as Meryl mentioned, like I kind of since learning to bend neon, when I first learned to bend, I did not bend any letters. I didn't want to bend any text at all. That changed once I realized that people pay money for letters, and it's actually quite a challenge. But I've always made these kind of doodles that those are improvisational, freeform. And as I moved to New York and had my access to colors and rare gases and different techniques and creases, they keep on just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. So yeah, this is some of like now I'm starting to like fill them out of ovens on the right there. That one's hand pulled tubes over there, and my skills are growing. And every time my bending style shifts, they shift, and I started out making these as like a quick thing I could make and like a cheap thing I could make, and now they're no longer quick or cheap just because I get bored of those things. So this takes like that one took like 2 or 3 days to make, but it's really fun because it's like white, and I got really satisfied when someone that gives me up for a long time asked me like, how did you do that? And I was like, oh my gosh, I stumped them. So yeah, these are all videos. These are xenon filled. Xenon is the heaviest and rarest of the rare gases. Most of the xenon comes from the largest steel mills in the world, which are in China, Ukraine, and Russia. So when COVID happened, steel production stopped, and then of course the war thing also didn't help with prices. So it's becoming really hard to fill with those gases. Um, I wanted to go into some of these things, but I want to get into more. Um, this is a web server that I really want to put into a sculpture. And so this is the website that's not working. And on the right is my brother in Maryland blinking the tubes from his phone, and me being in Brooklyn. So the idea is you can interact with the sculpture from anywhere in the world, and kind of like be in the gallery without being in the gallery. Kind of like on Zoom in a way. But I'm having a hard time because it's kind of weird to ask the gallery like, hey, can we put a pinhole in your firewall security and also get your ISP to open up port 80 on your router? That's a kind of a weird question to ask them. So with that in mind, I've kind of gotten into this. I've become really obsessed with privacy and data, and my brother is into computer sciences. So I started becoming interested in the idea of a sculpture with facial detection, watching you watch it, and it would respond to you watching it. And I still have to. I'm so bad with coding, and I'm learning, but I don't even know how long any should take. So I get frustrated with myself when I don't get it in like a few weeks. And so I got sometimes I've been shifting to listen to these books, and they kind of changed how I see the world and how it's like it really is all about the data and the users. And I stopped kind of, even though I intro to Merrill and things through a lot of these platforms, I started to really disagree with the privacy policies of some of these companies like Instagram and such. And you kind of have to agree to the privacy policy in order to use it. So I've started to move away into like these user-hosted ones, and also get into marketing because I'm running a business, and I really was not trained to run a business. So I'm figuring out what I'm doing. What does it mean to market and and sell ads? And yeah. So this QR code was also like a test of skill and a test of like I linked it to this self-hosted server in the Netherlands, which is a Mastodon server called Affinity, which is working really lovely until the concierge of that server, since it is self-hosted by a user, the concierge Hagen died. And so recently, R.I.P. Hagen, he was amazing, but one of the nerds on the server told me that, hey, this server is basically a ghost ship now, and you should migrate over to another one. So I did. All my followers went with me. My post stayed there. So, and yes, it did scan. It doesn't scan from every angle, but I was incredibly thrilled that it scanned. So there was Affinity.com, where Hagen was. And yeah, so there's an elephant in the room here. The LED thing. It is kind of, say, crumbling the tube industry. Um, like I run the numbers when I bet stuff commercially, and I'm like, you guys, I'm actually coming in a little bit cheaper than the LED people. But then when I hand it off to the mounting people, they take their time when they work, do a great job, but paying 3 or 4 people New York wages for 3 days to mount something is just going to be more expensive every single time. And I could be like, get off your phone and get to work, but I'm just not that kind of person, and I don't know, it's a funky thing, but and so it's bringing these weird things as far as conservation goes. This is a Chrysa piece. They wanted to ship this thing, but they needed 25mm blacklight in case of broken shipping, and nobody had 25mm blacklight. And they searched everywhere. I saw a lot of stuff on this. So basically, they had to go all the way to Europe, and they only used about a dozen tubes, but they had to go all over to Europe and spend tens of thousands of dollars to make pallets of this glass. And I went right to Ohio, to my friend Bree Bluzak, and she can pull tubes. And if you can just have some color pots full of this glass, like it's not that crazy to pull a dozen of these tubes, and then all we have to figure out is how to coat it. There's only one coder left in the United States that does this stuff, but I don't know. I think there's some research that could be done. It could be pretty fun to pull this stuff, and then by the way, you can kind of subvert market viability and pull brown tubes or gray tubes or purple tubes or pink tubes or tubes that you just can't buy. But as an artist, I want them, and I don't want a pallet's worth. I want like 10, or so you have a lot more freedom when you can do this. And so as I mentioned before, like these are some of the hand pulled tubes. It's, the subway taking it because I'm interested. Like we're in like a not gentrified area of Brooklyn, so the folks are like, "What is that? A balloon?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's a glass balloon." Um, then we go fill it. But without those phosphors, you're kind of stuck with red or blue backing light. So this is me getting into phosphors. This Dutch lady told me about this method where you mix phosphoric acid and ethanol, and then blow the sponge through the tube. So that's me blowing the sponge, and the sponge shot across the room. I had to apologize to somebody when it ended up like, very close to their drink, and it was full of chemicals. Here's me dust coating the tube after bending. About real funky, and I'm definitely not an expert at this, but these are all hand pulled tubes coated with phosphor that then end up in this way. And my coworker said, "Oh, it's a painterly look. We love it." And I'm like, "No, I want like the real thing." But I guess it's nice to be able to have that painterly look. And it lets you coat borosilicate glass and things that you just can't buy. So this is like a double-walled condenser that's filled with mineral oil because it matches the refractive index of the borosilicate glass. It makes the inside like kind of disappear, but not really. So I've definitely been playing around with this stuff. And as I mentioned before, I've become obsessed with this data stuff, running a business. So it's like I'm a business owner in New York, I'm results oriented, kind of like Amazon, and data driven, kind of like Google, and ad fueled, kind of like Facebook and TikTok. And so I've made this soul selling cube, which I'm currently making. I've had this idea of existing on my computer since 2021, and I wasn't sure if it was a good idea or not until I opened it back up, and I'm going to be in a show full of commercial neon vendors. I was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. These top three are my priorities that have become my priorities in life. Money, which the biggest one, occupies a lot of my time, and love, because Allie's favorite color is blue, and art, because the red in my art's really going to catch your eye, and every now and then I get to make art. So this soul selling timer is going to be showing in Wyoming. It's currently a work in progress. It's coming up in my butt. The red button really isn't working. It has these flip digits, kind of like you're getting gas. They flip and they count the time down. So it's really like every second matters. Like get back to work, get back in those fires, make that money. And I wish I could just tell that to the coworkers who about the stuff, but I'm just not that much of a jerk yet. But maybe if I hang out in New York for a few more years, I'll get there. And so this is really getting into the present. That's a work in progress. This guy, Aaron, so Bree pulled the tubes. She married this guy, Aaron, who got me into fruit. All my life, I haven't liked fruit until Aaron handed me a fruit smoothie, and I realized, oh my gosh, there's fruit in this. So he came to my house to saw a show in New York, and he brought his smoothie making supplies, and I took notes. And basically, this consisted of buy this Brazilian fruit stuff, and so there's the Brazilian fruit market, and then throw it in the blender, and add some fresh fruit, and now I'm eating fruit. I just turned 30, and all my life I've eaten processed sugar for breakfast, and I've changed that now, and I'm eating fruit smoothies, and I still like kind of have this microwave thing where I'm into making these craft appliances, and I want to make them more functional. So I was looking at my blender, which is a cheap street find, and or free street find, and I noticed there's this cut glass edge. I'm like, wow, that looks like someone took that to a diamond lap wheel over there in the tool shop. And I realized, I was like, I want to make a blender, so I want to make these craft appliances. And so I went to this, realized I was also at this scholarship to this place called Pilchuck Glass School. There's a view of it's on a 15,000 acre tree farm. So there's a clear cut of the trees. And it's pretty amazing. You think you're in this rich forest, and you get to a clear cut, and you realize, I'm on a farm. And it's a pretty incredible place. But yeah, I realized I could make this thing. So here is So the only thing, we had this auction theme party, so I'm in this crazy getup. Farmer Fashionista was the theme. So the idea is to mix fruit and ideas and people. And so like there's all these artists making things with fruit, and I'm realizing like my brother tells me he's like, you're not unique, James. Like someone else has the same ideas, and if we look at all the data, we can see all these people with the ideas and then predict their behavior. So yeah, I want to get all these. My dream is to get a sponsorship by a fruit company, a sponsorship by a booze company, fly about a dozen glass blowers to a tropical area or an area known for fruit. And someone said San Jose was known for fruit. I don't know. It's okay. Anyways, and then have a fruit party there and partner with a local glass studio and have a thing where I'm only going to pour the fruit into a handmade cup. So, and then that was just like a month ago that happened, and or not even like a few weeks ago. I was in Tacoma afterwards. My friend Danny has a degree in chemistry. She's been helping me get those liquid coats right so I can get the phosphorus really nice. And so this guy Monday Pepper that Meryl talking about, he said I was about to get all these super toxic chemicals that literally say on the MSDS sheet harmful to aquatic life. And Filtrek is around water in Seattle. So like probably not a good thing to bring there. And I'm also trying to share this stuff so other people can do it. It doesn't really do any good to like share this thing and be like, oh yeah, by the way, all these chemicals are gonna kill you. So yeah, the chemicals aren't exactly like the safest. So Danny did get me some proper chemistry stuff to like suit up, but it's really neat. And then yeah, now I wanted to go here because I admire so many artists here. That's the whole reason why I wanted to go to California in the first place. I've met a lot of people, but I've wanted to visit their studio and I've kept track of people. So Adam here graduated Alfred and like immediately got a job at a commercial sign shop. I had a boss to like apprentice me for 2 years, so I felt like pretty lucky. But he was just like dropped almost straight into the fire. He went from Arrow for a bit, but then like went straight to the fires. And so he's like, I'm into the neon rainbow thing, and here's a rainbow of green to blue, and it says consistency because he's working on this like commercial consistency of like basically the commercial standard is don't mess up ever, perfect every time, and that's crazy for this. It's kind of difficult to bend tubes. And then oh my gosh, here's me at the Golden Gate Bridge. There's Ames Pump. Oh, by the way, Adam had a talk like simultaneously during this talk at this neon space in San Francisco. So yeah, I guess we all missed it. But so yeah, I had never been to San Francisco before. I'm like, this is amazing. This is the land of Thrasher magazine and hippies, and I am like stoked. So I haven't seen a lot of hippies around. I think they're all replaced by tech bros, but that's fine. I really want to schmooze with some tech bros. And so I was like, I was like, Meryl like asked me like the other day like on the phone at Filtrek like, what do you want to make? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even thought about that. I just wanted to help you make stuff. um, and so like Allie and I were thinking, it's like I had seen Allie was working at Filtrek all summer. I hadn't seen her since April when I went there in July, early in July, and so we were like ecstatic to see each other again. But then at the same time, I got completely sucked up into this class, and there's all these people that I admire everywhere, and it's like she's like mad at me because I'm not like hanging out with her, but at the same time, I'm like just completely caught up in this. It's like I love you all so much, but like there's just no time to like hang out with all of you and like be with everybody. And so this piece we made here. This is it in progress. Kevin over here helped us pump it the other day, and it's actually back there, like in a more finished but not really finished state. It's just time. So these are some social links. There's the Affinity server, the Pagan RIP, but now I'm on expressional.social, and that's like the real social media right there. It's designed to be social and not serve you ads and track you. And then I am on Instagram too, which is I mainly just post ads there because most of the traffic is there. But I still have to like post stuff on there. And then Nebula Neon is my company, and we're even on TikTok, so you can get your video zombie thing going. Yeah, that's the last slide. If you have any questions, I can totally answer questions. You can also just like, oh yeah, if you need to take photos, I'll just like duck down here, take a beer. But like, we can go back there if you want. And like Meryl has been working on some really fun stuff that we can show you what we're kind of working on while we're here. We have, like I said, we have this kind of thing set up in a way you can read better than on the screen. It's kind of arranged. the way it's more supposed to be arranged in a work in progress state. It's not completely done yet, but that's fine. I think we accomplished a lot of goals in the residency. Meryl totally got into Aurora, and I really want to see what she's doing. I'll have to go on Instagram to see, of course. But yeah, it would be fun to come back someday. It's been so fun. It's been such a thrill to be here, and thank you all for coming so much. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, if you have any questions, find us after.
Thank you, Dave.
So yeah, you can get a beer or refreshment.
Yay,
James!
That was
I
awesome.
did go over that 2 minutes ago.
No, that was so awesome.
Thanks, Kevin, for helping out. So much.
Like the microwave. Are you kidding? It's so sick.
That was really cute the way that he just gave us his entire life story. I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much for having us. And then this is our She Bends live stream. We do have one person there who's going to say goodbye. Good night. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
People will see it later on.